we go to deal with the matters of GETFund. And as you know, the Auditor General's report is being impugned by the GETFund administrator. So we find out what exactly are the problems of the GETFund administrator, and then we look into other aspects of it as well. But joining us here on the second segment of the program today is the MP for Timpani and Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Joseph Dindiok Penka. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Samson.
And we can't thank Ben Yao Ampoma, Executive Secretary, Water Resources Commission, and Dr. Anthony Appiah-Dua, Head Groundwater Division of the CSR, enough. Thank you all so very much. So I understand that we should have Richard Boedu, who is the GETFund administrator, on the line. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. Okay, right. So I had also earlier told you that there is some other person that we'll bring on the line, and you will be shocked at what we are doing to ourselves. Dr. Fathia Karim is a graduate of the KNUST School of Medical Sciences 2016 year group. She graduated at the top of her class, awarded 12 out of the 15 prizes. I'm sure this was in the news and you followed it. She completed her 2-year housemanship program and now working as a medical officer. Thank you for making time to join us on NewsFile, Doc. Good morning, Dr. Fathia Karim.
Hello, good morning.
Right, good to have you. Okay, so I've heard about your story of how you were seeking little support, even after all the brilliance that you showed, and yet were turned away at the premises of the GETFund. Now, this is where you are. What can you tell us about this interesting story?
Well, so it all started in 2018. Early 2018, I applied for a master's program in some American universities to study the master's in public health. And after gaining admission into these universities, some of them offered me a partial tuition scholarship. And so I was looking for an external source of funding to help me pay for the rest of my tuition fees.
Right.
So I decided to apply to GETFund, and I asked around about the scholarship and the requirements and what I needed to apply. I spoke to a few people who had applied previously, and although the news was not too good because they told me these days GETFund was not giving so much support as they used to. But I still decided to go ahead and apply anyway because
right.
I felt like even if the funding was limited, I felt like I was qualified enough to be at least considered for the scholarship.
Right.
So after I received another email from Mr. Paul Wong, he's the senior program manager for Johns Hopkins University School of Public Health Programs. He's the senior program manager. He sent 3 of us who are Ghanaians who had been admitted an email and told us we were the top 3 rated candidates from Ghana. So we shouldn't have too much of a problem in securing funding from GETFund. Because over there, their mindset was that in Ghana, Ghanaian students get support from GETFund. So getting funding from them should not be a problem. So with that, I added that to my documents and submitted it at the premises of GETFund at the reception desk, because that's where you leave all your documents. And I left. So after about 2 weeks to a month, I called back to find out if any feedback could be given to me. But they said they had not deliberated on, or they've not decided on who was receiving a scholarship as yet. So I kept calling because I did not receive any feedback from them. I even went there back once in person to inquire how far the process has gone. But unfortunately, the time for the decision made as to whether I can go or not, it elapsed. So without the funding, I had to defer for the next year. And then, so the following year came, and the senior program manager once again told me that some people receive funding, so he does not understand why I did not receive funding. And I was surprised because I had heard the new policy was the programs in the US were too expensive, so they were not giving funding for tuition. But if you were able to get your tuition from elsewhere, you'd be given a stipend. But he kept insisting that some people get some money for tuition. And he even gave me their email so I could contact them to find out how they were able to do it. So I spoke to about 2 of them. One of them actually just got a stipend, but I think 2 of them got half of their tuition or part of their tuition from GETFund. And they told me it was a struggle because they had to be going to the offices frequently. And for over 2 months, they kept going there. And in the end, they were giving the scholarship. But then, from what the administrator said, it did not look like they were going to do that again. They were not going to give the tuition as I had been previously told. I also received a LinkedIn request. It was quite interesting because all of a sudden I saw that the Minister of Education had sent me a LinkedIn request, and I was so excited. I was like, wow, how did this even happen? Because I was trying to find a way to speak to him personally about this issue. I'm not sure if he sent it personally or his handler sent it, but either way, I received one. And I accepted a request, and then I told him about this predicament, and he told me no scholarships were given for anyone who went to apply for a scholarship to study in America. But instead, specific grants were given, and I'm not sure what that actually means. And that the consideration for the selection was not only based on academics, but also the relevance of the course to national development. And if the course is unavailable in Ghana, I was like, okay, that's fine. But then I decided to reapply anyway, again. And this time I was outside Accra, so my dad decided to send the documents on my behalf. But I think at the reception, they told him it wasn't time. And he also spoke to another person on the premises who said it would be better if we knew someone who could bring it directly to the higher up at GETFund. So my dad tried. So that means I applied only once, but the second time, the application was not submitted. My dad was trying to work his way around it, trying to find someone to help, but he kept being tossed around, actually. So the whole, over 6 months, this one will say, wait, I'll get this one for you. This person will say, wait, I'll get this person for you. And the time ran out, unfortunately. So I had to decline my admission once again. So that's what happened over the 2 years, or a year and a half.
Interesting. So what point are we now? You're giving up on it?
So at this point, I almost did give up on it. I felt like if you're doing the same thing and there's no change, why keep on doing it? But I decided, the dean of Johns Hopkins University emailed me after I had to decline the offer the second time, encouraging me to reapply. So that was the only reason why I have actually reapplied. And they accepted me once again. So now I'm going to submit, hopefully, another application to GETFund. I'm not sure how far it's going to go, but it's worth a try.
All right. Thank you very much. You'll be talking to the GETFund administrator, and we'll ask if you don't qualify, who else is qualified for the scholarships. Thank you very much for your time. Dr. Fathia Karim is a graduate of the KNUST School of Medical Sciences, the 2016 year group. I'm sure you may have seen her in the papers and in the media all over the place because she won 12 of the 15 prizes that were at stake at the graduation ceremony. Thank you once again.
Thank you, too.
All right. So we'll ask the GETFund administrator whether, since they have, like the Auditor General said, they took away the award or the processing of scholarships from the Scholarship Secretariat, which is the entity they should be giving the money to do the job, and have been doing it themselves since 2009. Even though it does appear that in 2017, 2018, or is it 2018, 2019, they appear to have changed now, and they are beginning to put the necessary structures in place. Why Fathia Karim cannot and must go through this frustration to go pursue a course that will have direct benefits to the country. We have heard of a gentleman who was on Ghana Connect. He needed just like 1,000 cedis to be able to fund his education at the Ghana Telecoms University. He didn't have that money. He does, kebab in the afternoon or in the evening to supplement it. He sought help he can't find. Are these not the people who are deserving, and are they not the reason the GETFund was set up? We'll find out. All right, so let's begin, and I was hoping to speak to the GETFund administrator first because he has raised a number of issues about the GETFund. Well, I think we can listen to him briefly. He spoke to Asempa FM. We can listen to him briefly, and then when we have him on the phone, we can speak to him directly to explain the problems and difficulties they have with the audit itself.
In its own ways, I said the list was generated by GETFund. The list na Kasana or the buy of the 88. Me when they say in Yamabi it was list of 80. Yama list be it was a file of documents incorporating people that have been shortlisted, people that have applied. Any financial files and a file, files, different various of files.
Okay.
Any demand say on working on it, and based on that, he created that list.
Okay.
A total huge numbers of scholarship application and on no picky 88. That is what they requested. Into the whole document now. Into a be shortlisted. Some will be classified as shortlisted. Some will be classified as awarded. Some will be classified as approved. Awarded is a yatro letter. Offer letter and say genako. Approval no. When I committee ni dia mami na me ma approve na ma forward it to me deputy no the the scholarship section no one about award letter e dia ma wo enti the 88 no we find out that 12 there is no financial obligation towards them.
12 in the 88.
Omanko school.
But it was part of the list. Auditor General.
Part of the list. The list.
Yeah, it was part
of the files. The documents.
Because they had applied.
But Sankomi a due diligence. Komba said there was no financial implication. Yen committee financially to them.
Audit service.
Audit service say sika on the bay audit no. Finance for in releases can email. But that ade no so hia yen. Nti omo troba say ye ma o sika.
Okay.
No mo fan kwankwa audit no. Me call me minister ho. Me kan no say asem no waka waba be kyensa ade no hia. Nti ade nti na wo twintwen so. Yenko ne yenko kotua ema wo mo say no betimi aye adwuma no. Eni yetua sika. Edema.
Nti GETFund and kasa na finance audit na
Sa pepe yetua 350,000 for
350,000
cedis Ghana cedis for auditing no auditing no e include 3 universities no any scholarship
on a simple
any other infrastructure auditing.
Okay, nti so far report na ba betodwa no the aspect on the scholarship
me patcho besine the 3 universities, you know, any others in there. 3 years are you 2 years, you know. Yansanka Bibia.
Yansanka report.
Yansanka report in Bia.
Munim so my and a report among farmer when as a munim the akosi.
Scholarship, no, and umudi kind, a buy. But till date, Yente and who Asembia.
The other ones now can monte
Yente Moshe.
All right, so you heard the administrator of the GETFund, Richard Bwedu, speaking there on Ekosi Sen with Philip Osei-Bonsu, the host, and he spoke in Chi, quite a bit of it. If I want to translate, it will take us too much time, but essentially, he's impugning aspects of the audit. Number one, he says this is a job that they paid for the Auditor General to do, and they are not happy that when he was done with the job, we say he, but we know it's an institution. When he was done with the job, they were not served with a copy, and yet a copy was circulating out there. They are not exactly happy about that. Among other things, there's a list that you all are aware now, politically exposed persons, media persons, among others, who the Auditor General names in the audit, and which has become a big issue. There was an MP, Kennedy Osei-Nyako, who was very angry that his name was in the list, yet he didn't, see why his name should be there because he had nothing to do with GETFund. Well, thankfully, the administrator confirms that he had made an application, but it is not the case that he was giving any money for anything. So there's no reason his name should be there. And he raises other issues as well. Whilst my guests are discussing, maybe they may also translate a bit of more of what he had to say. Now, if I may begin with Dr. Drosai, and as from where you sit as a professional, and as I said earlier, you are not only a chartered accountant, but you're also written in this, kind of subject. If we can deal briefly with what you have seen the Auditor General's report to contain and the complaints you have heard from the administrator and other persons, what you have to say about them.
Thank you very much, Samson. I've read the Auditor General's report, and as a professional, you would always have to look at the audit objective. And it is important we help people to understand that the Auditor General indicated that he undertook performance audit. And performance audit is trying to establish whether the institution has performed its mandate according to the establishment instrument. It is not a financial audit. It is a performance audit.
What's the difference?
The difference is that in the financial audit, the institution has its financial statements. The auditor goes there to perform verification and vouching to establish whether the financial statement shows a true and fair view of the activities of the organization.
So I was asking the wrong questions last week when I asked why they didn't do vouching and verification.
Definitely, because, well, vouching can be done in financial audit. But when it comes to performance audit, verification is key.
Okay.
You do verification in, and performance audit is more qualitative than quantitative, except that at times you need some quantitative information to support the qualitative conclusion. So basically, the auditor did a performance audit. Now, in doing performance audit, the functions of the organization, as per the establishment instrument, is critical. So once you define this, then the professional standards requires that you comply with standards that comes into play when you are performing performance audit.
Okay.
And this standards requires that you meet with them at an entrance conference, you request for certain key information. And let me also explain that the auditor is expected to do either sampling audit or 100% audit. The 100% audit is where the volume of transaction is not that voluminous. He will be able to do everything. But looking at the space of time, I suspected he used sampling audit. And here, materiality
2012 to 2018.
That's right. I can imagine the volume of transactions. Now, sampling audit requires that you set materiality level. In auditing, you can say that transactions above this value, I will not review them because they are immaterial. But if it is below this value, I will review them. So then, once he sets the materiality level and he samples, he can pick and choose them. So if you are not finding certain names in the report, it is because of the audit approach. 2, once you set up those limits, you have to gather relevant, reliable, and sufficient audit evidence that will support your conclusion. And that's what he did. Now the conclusions is drawn that, look, GETFund is not supposed to go into direct administration of the funds. They are to rather supplement it or give it to the Scholarship Secretariat for the Secretariat to do their implementation. That conclusion I have seen. Again, what I have also seen, and I know is the professional practice, is in the course of the audit, you issue audit queries. Once you issue the queries, the auditee, being the administrator and his staff, are expected to respond. Once they respond, you have to incorporate it into the report. I see from paragraph 116 of the Auditor General's report that he has incorporated the response from the auditee. So his conclusions are fair. But the questions I'm asking is, why did the Auditor General over-concentrated on the administrator? Because when you look at the GETFund Act, we have Board of Trustees. And the functions of the Board of Trustees, as provided for under Section 7, it's clear that they are expected to provide directions for the management of the fund. So if there is any culpability, you hold them responsible because the administrator merely implemented the directives and the directions of the Board of Trustees. And you and I know that when it comes to trust, they are expected to manage it in such a way that it will benefit us, the beneficiaries. They are in an agency capacity, so they cannot fail us. So these are the things I've seen happening. But my view is that the auditor applied the auditing procedures expected of him under that particular circumstance. His conclusions are fair, and anybody who thinks that he's been unfair to them can take the auditor on. The auditor owes a duty to all of us, to the auditee, to third parties, to apply the due care, skill, and diligence required of a professional. And there is also professional negligence in there if you feel he's been negligent. So my personal view is that he's done his work. We should leave it at that. Those who feel slighted by his work can take him on at another level. Institute of Chartered Accountant is there. He's a professional accountant and a member of the ICE. If you think he's been professionally negligent, you go there. If you think you can take him on under thought, you take him on. So that is what I can say about this audit report.
So he was very categorical about certain things.
That's right.
That from 2009, the administrator usurped the role of the Scholarship Secretariat by curtailing and stopping, sending us and giving monies, their portion of the money to the Scholarship Secretariat. Because as far as the Auditor General is concerned, it is a Scholarship Secretariat that should administer scholarships. Your job, according to Section 22B, is give them the money to do the job. Yes. So he says they took the job away from the Scholarship Secretariat. I think it's around 2019 18, 19 thereabouts, that they began to restore, the new administrator began to restore this kind of process. So what do you say to those who make the argument that there is also the section 22E that allows the GETFund,
educational
yes,
activities.
that allows GETFund to, as it were, promote other educational programs and activities. And under that clause, they are able to give us scholarships. So the Auditor General is not exactly right.
Samson, you see, if we are reading the law, we should read it in whole. The 2E is saying to provide monies to support such other educational activities and programs. They said to provide money to support, not to administer, such other educational activities and programs for the promotion of education. Promotion of education, not for education. Promotion of education as the minister, in consultation with the board, may determine. Question we need to ask ourselves is, did the minister determine that the areas he supported, which have been flagged by the auditor, are the areas the funds should go? That conclusion we need to come to. If the auditor, through his evidence gathering process, established that there was no such clearance or approval from the minister, then he's right.
The audit says they didn't get any evidence to this effect of the consultation and approval. But we have heard lawyers suggest that, you know, these things are done and they are taken to Parliament for approval. So there will be a minister's involvement. So if you say you don't have it, then the auditor may be wrong.
Samson, the auditor may not be wrong entirely because the auditor attached to his report the formula that was sent to Parliament for Parliament to approve by way of utilization of the fund. And this is not there. So in the performance audit, like I said, qualitative information is critical. The auditor needed that information. He gave you the opportunity to respond. You never responded in there. And I have his responses incorporated in the report from paragraph 116. Okay. Nowhere in the administrator's response did he indicate that the minister approved those things. You know, so I think that there is another option of audit review. If we have fresh evidence, next year or this year, they may go to do the annual audit. Right. They'll review it and check whether these things are there. If they are there, he can come back to amend his audit report.
So the administrator should be explaining why at the time of the audit, when they were giving the opportunity to explain certain things, he didn't give the information he's supplying us now, using on the back of which information he's impugning the audit. It's too late for him. Is that what you're saying?
It may be too late because the report has been issued, okay. But he's not forever barred from providing that information because the auditor will go back and do his annual audit. And he may want to review to see progress of some of the recommendations he's made.
He'll appear before Parliament's public accounts.
Yes, that doesn't spoil anything. Okay. Doesn't spoil. He can bring the evidence. And again, the administrator, through the board, can also submit the evidence to Public Accounts Committee. But at this stage, I would advise the board not to sit back because the law places a lot of responsibility on the board. They are in a position of trust. So they should also come out and be speaking whether or not they made an input into this particular process.
Okay. There are those who suggest that if you look at the other part of the law, section 22D, it also says that the GETFund can, give scholarships to train brilliant students to become teachers or for purposes of research. And that should be done through the National Council on Tertiary Education, or NCTC, TE. Is the auditor right by suggesting that they are wrong somewhat because they gave some of the scholarship to teachers and so on? Should they have given it to the institutions that those teachers are in, for those institutions to administer it, or give it to the NCTE to determine which institution needs to sponsor its teachers?
I think the auditor is right in citing that they were wrong in administering it themselves, because the law is clear that it is to be provided through the National Council of Tertiary Education. And this is about brilliant students, and it is to be given to members of faculties who is best placed to establish whether you are a member of faculty or not. And even there are certain programs that may not even be relevant to certain faculties. Aside from that, they said they should undertake research and other academic programs of relevance to national development. And that is why we have National Council for Tertiary Education. So in my view, I'm happy they are back on track to allow these institutions to perform the mandate given to them by law. But they should also be humble enough to admit that we erred by administering it ourselves instead of giving the funds to the National Council for Tertiary Education and Scholarship Secretariat to administer.
The question is asked that if you say that the Auditor General, the GETFund cannot give scholarship directly, it is only the Scholarship Secretariat, or if he wants to give to teachers or for research, it should give it to NCTE for distribution to the universities or institutions that need them. Then what you're saying is that they may not be scholarship for purposes of traveling abroad for further studies. That's why they use the E and say that's the power they have to do. Because if you look at 22B, it is only for local sponsorship.
That's right.
Local sponsorship. It doesn't include sending anybody abroad. Then if you look at the D that you have just looked at, then again, it is for the institutions to administer. So they are saying that if they look at a situation and they feel somebody needs, like Dr. Fatia, we just spoke to, she needs to travel abroad. If they make application to them, they should be able to administer that to them.
But Samson, you see, the framers of the law may not be wrong by saying under 2.1 that the object of the fund is to provide finance to supplement the provision of education. Aside from that, you see, there are certain things that are best done by certain institutions. In Dr. Fatia's case, I was going to comment on it. You have finished 2016, you came top of your class. 2 years down the line, you finish with your housemanship, which comes to 2018. That same 2018, you are going to do MPH. MPH can be done at University of Ghana, Legon. 2 years, it is now that Ghana will benefit from you. So some of these analysis can best be done by the institutions themselves. Okay. That is not to say that she doesn't deserve it. But what I'm saying is that under the principle of subsidiarity, let us allow state institutions mandated to perform specific functions by their law to perform those functions.
Will you blame her if she's aware, as we are now, that out of over 3,000 scholarships that were given within the period, only about 800 was for local, sponsorship was for locals. The rest of it was for foreign studies. So if she's applying, why should she be faulted?
Well, I have an answer to that, but maybe it's not my turn. When it comes to my turn, I will address that issue very seriously.
Maybe
especially Dr. Fatia's case.
Right.
I have personally made an inquiry from the GETFund Secretariat. What exactly was the reason for what happened? And I've been provided with some answers. Yes.
Okay, right now you have done that.
I've done that.
Okay.
And the answer is very straight. That first of all, there's a capping for American universities, which is $30,000, and in their case it was $75,000. Okay. That's one of the reasons. Okay. The other reason is that the course has a local.
That reason.
Just a minute.
If you check the auditor's report, they have given in excess of that.
Just hold it. Just hold it. If you look at our local environment, that course is being offered here.
Okay.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons. And you see, what they try to do is that they try to encourage many more people to read courses that we don't have local content.
So now they are correcting the problem.
Which is what they are supposed to do actually.
Okay.
Because, Samson, what would be the reason why a course that will cost us 5,000 Ghana cedis to study in Ghana, we should pay 30,000 for someone to go and study in the US, the same course? What would be the reason?
So why don't they tell her?
It would defeat the purpose.
Why don't they tell her that that is the situation?
Absolutely. I think that's what should be communicated to her.
She wasn't told.
In writing. It should be written to her that, look, 2 reasons. Our capping for American universities is $30,000. That's one. Number 2, the course you're going to do, we have a local component and it's cheaper here. So you can do it here. That should have been written and communicated to her. I do agree with that. But you see, the impression has been created as though she's been discriminated against. You know, and that's what is very dangerous.
By the facts that we know so far in the audit, that would be such a huge discrimination against her.
Yes.
That you can't find someone like her qualified to benefit from a package that other people have had in excess of that amount.
You see, Samson, that's why I'm saying that. You see, we are putting things in a certain perspective for the benefit of all of us.
Right.
And until we are able to this, and of course, if we have done something in the past and we realize we are the wrong, shouldn't we correct it?
Right.
Should we continue to wallow in that wrong? I don't think so at all. You see, this GETFund brouhaha, I have tried everything possible to make inquiry, even from the Auditor General and all that. I've spoken to him personally and all that. And I think that we could have avoided where we are today. We could have avoided it completely. It is totally needless where we are. First of all, let me ask a fundamental question. This report needs to get to Parliament.
Right.
The committee will invite these persons to come and give an explanation. And remember that in the recent past, people were even arrested at the committee's sittings and all that. These persons, the administrator and his staff, will go and provide justifications for all the questions and queries that have been raised. And if they are not convincing enough, then other steps will be taken to remedy it. What is the reason why we threw this to the public domain when it hadn't gotten to the final stage where people will go and answer and etc.? What's the purpose?
The auditor
Was it a sin?
The auditor says, I'm done with my report. The Constitution mandates me to send it to the Speaker.
Yes.
So I sent it to the Speaker.
Yes.
And by our act, I'm supposed to put a copy on our page, on their web page. So they put a copy there and send one to Parliament. Have they done wrong?
No, you see, but that's why I'm saying that. He may be saying that putting it on his page, he hasn't done anything wrong. But why couldn't he hold it till Parliament has invited them to provide the justification? You see, I'm saying this because, you see, if you listen carefully to the GETFund administrator, he stated very categorically that there were a whole lot of files that were given. It will take us to another level of discussion.
For about 9,000 applications. Yes. That's what he spoke about.
Yes, you see, it will take us to another realm of this discussion. And the discussion will be focused on what was this sample size that was taken. What was the basis for the sample size? And the particular persons and personalities who were selected, what was the basis for it? Samson, when I first read this report and I went to social media, my goodness, they virtually criminalized some of the beneficiaries and calling them names, people were greedy and etc. and awarding scholarships to themselves. People didn't even know that some of the beneficiaries did not benefit under this current dispensation and that it was earlier that they benefited. And some of them ran certain courses. And you see, I want us to put certain things in perspective once more. So I'm saying we should be finding out from ourselves whether or not if an MP goes to do a course for 3 weeks that will enhance his work in Parliament, it is to the benefit of the state or not. Maybe we may have to redefine what
should the MP access funding within Parliament or go to GETFund?
If it is not available in Parliament and GETFund can invoke 22E to say that it is other educational activities and say that for the benefit of the country, let us sponsor this person to go pursue the course. You see, you know that that is pure discretion, isn't it? Which is exercised in compliance with Article 296. It's pure discretion. And you must find out whether the person's conduct and actions are contrary to law. You see, when the
law provides the very clear specifics of the category or group of things that one has to do and gets to a final point and makes another provision and doesn't include scholarship.
I'm going to address that.
Is it your understanding of the law that you are able to administer scholarships, even though you are just a trust? You are able to administer scholarship.
I don't want to speak Latin
what
this morning.
Because
I don't want to
Dr.
speak
Doe
Latin
disagrees with you.
But something.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to speak law. I'm just going to speak English in its ordinary sense. When you are given a discretion to run something, and there is a list, you are supposed to act in compliance with the law. There's a list. And you are asked to comply with that. For example, if they had given the money for my village women to brew pito, in my analysis, that would be a breach of the act. Because brewing of pito is not an educational activity.
The law,
please take note of that.
The law is aware of education promotion activities.
Yes.
And yet it spoke about scholarship at different stages.
Yes.
Is there a reason why they didn't speak about scholarship in the E? Is there a reason they didn't mention scholarship?
That is why, for me, when I read this thing, I said that we will have a final decision on this matter if we go to court.
Why do you want to go to court? What's
an interpretation
in your training?
Of 2E.
In your training,
yes.
What is the principle of interpretation?
Of course, that's what I was just talking about.
That once the lawmaker says scholarship here, scholarship there, and gets to another point within the same breath and doesn't mention scholarship, does it give you the right to give scholarship?
If it says educational activities, the question will be whether awarding scholarship for someone to study abroad is an educational activity. That would be the fundamental question. And that's why I'm saying that we may need a court to give an interpretation to this. You see, something, things may appear that easy and straightforward. But when you go to court for an interpretation, you may be very much shocked what the courts are likely to say. Because the question fundamentally will be at that stage, whether in E, educational activities cannot be interpreted to include granting scholarship for persons to study specialized areas abroad. Because remember that before then, the scholarship that is anticipated or stated is local. And that's supposed to be administered by the Scholarship Secretariat, which you indicated that the GETFund did administer that contrary to law when they were supposed to actually send that money.
I didn't indicate. That's what the audit says.
No, you indicated, and that was, of course, from the report.
Right.
So what I can say is that, for me, the 2E gave them that opportunity to act the way they did. And you see, let me tell you something.
When the GETFund, for example, is helping, a school in your area to do a particular project, that will not be scholarship, right? If it is helping, say, brilliant science and maths quiz, will that be promoting of educational activity?
Already the GETFund, the provision of infrastructure is one of their core mandates.
Right.
So don't go there.
No, I'm not talking about infrastructure.
Yes.
Because in 22A, it is clear about infrastructure. Where you have to put money in the student's loan, it is clear in C. Correct?
But let me find out from you. Is there an Oster clause in the law that says that they cannot provide scholarship to persons to study abroad? There's no Oster clause.
My question to you is...
There's no Oster clause.
And you're learning as a lawyer.
Yes.
How do you interpret a law? Once it says in A, give scholarship. It comes to B, says give scholarship. It comes to C, says promote activities. Does it give you power to give scholarship? What is the nature
of the scholarship in A and B? What's the nature of the scholarship in A and B? If it has stated in A and B categorically that the scholarship there will include scholarship to study abroad, then you cannot read E to include that.
Why does it not say? Why does it not say? Because I'm thinking about foreign scholarship. In the E, as you say, give scholarship to for studies abroad.
You see, but that is why I'm talking about the fact that we will need an interpretation. You see,
okay.
and we may even go and read the Hansard.
All right.
And find out in crafting this what the MP's motive was. What was the reason for this particular E?
Okay.
What was the reason for it? Otherwise, you see, we're going to limit it to interpret it in a manner that will suit our personal interest in certain circumstances. You will say that the E there will include supporting the people of Timpani constituency with some local material to enhance teaching and learning. That's what you are likely to say, promotion of educational activities. But the question I've asked fundamentally is whether studying abroad is not an educational activity. That's the fundamental issue that we should be raising. And you see...
So my question to you is, why don't they say in the first and second situation, promotion of educational activity? Promotion of educational activity. Why did they say scholarship? And then they get there and they don't say scholarship.
That is why I am indicating to you that educational activities there has not been defined.
Okay.
It gives you a discretion. And so long as you can offer a justification for that, you can go ahead and do it.
Okay.
But I'm saying that this particular whole gamut of discussion that we are engaged in, for me, with the greatest respect, is needless. We shouldn't have gotten here at all.
Okay.
If we had acted with certain amount of circumspection and prudence, we should not have gotten here. Because you see, at a point in time, virtually we're criminalizing the GETFund in the discussions that we had, as though scholarships were, and I have, I mean, records. I've been to GETFund ever since this thing broke, because the GETFund boss is somebody I relate very well with. I went to find out from a very solid gentleman. You know, I went to find out from him some of these things. And he provided a list of persons who are beneficiaries. Some of them studying courses that are going to be of so much significance.
I need to take a break here, but before that, tell me, if you say that this room gives them the opportunity to give scholarship abroad, does it give them room to give scholarship abroad, which should be more than the local scholarship? Because over 2,000 goes to a foreign scholarship. And then you have 800 and so going to the local.
What I think I will only have problems with GETFund.
Okay.
Are issues related to what Fataya was complaining about. If, for example, somebody is studying LLM in a program that is offered at the University of Ghana, and then the person decides to go and study the same program in Harvard, and then you pay for the person. For that, I will not buy into the idea at all. Okay. I think that we should be encouraging that we study courses that are not really locally available, so that we can come back and enhance and engender national development, rather than paying $30,000 for a course that locally will cost us less than $10,000.
Okay. Right, so we take a break. We'll be right back, and we'll hear more of him, but we'll hear from Kweku first. You're welcome back. This is NewsFile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on NewsFile, we put Ghana first. So, as Penka, you know, relaxes a bit, we hear from Kweku, and perhaps the very first time you may get to hear him on this. So, a number of questions, and I want you, when you start, you know, you flow as much as you want to. Question is, number one, for the entire period of the audit, GETFund, which was administering these scholarships, was found not to have used standards that scholarship awarding institutions adhere to. So they took GMPC, for example, and look at the way the processes of awarding scholarships. And they found that as for GETFund, what had become of the thing is that once you know that it is GETFund place, you go and put your application there, and the administrator deals with it directly, instead of advertising for the scholarships. They admit that it is in, I think, the last year that GETFund has now run adverts telling people they can come for it. Beyond that, for each year, they were giving more than they had. If Parliament approved 100,000 for you for scholarship, who is forcing you to give scholarships for 300,000? And they did in excess of 300%. It is recently that they have managed to bring it down to about 100%, overspending about 100%, and at a certain point, I think 90 or 60 something percent. What do you make of all of this?
See, you know, in principle, I have had the attitude of backing, or if you like, giving critical support to the Auditor General and the Audit Service. And I'm not talking of just this Auditor General or the management now. These creatures of Constitution, and especially when it comes to probity and accountability principles, it's always good to give them the benefit of the doubt and support so that they can do their work. It helps us. So, in principle, that's my position on this matter. However, and I said critical support, that means that where you think an audit report or an Auditor General has erred, we should have the courage of conviction to state it and interrogate the issues the way they are. You know, and Mr. Pemba actually went in that direction. I felt very uncomfortable when the report, a very important report like this, became a subject of political football and propaganda debate out there, I felt very uncomfortable. Not that I'm against people talking, but you see, there's a procedure. You submit this report to the Speaker for parliamentary scrutiny. I am not sure when the Auditor General published his thing on the website. I'm not sure. I have to be very careful. Because I know that you can do that only when you have presented the report to the Speaker. I think that's the sequence. So I'm not too sure when that happened. But you see, this matters and all these controversies we are having.
But the letter of transmittal is 8 November 2019.
Yes, that doesn't mean that's when it went to Parliament. Indeed, my own latest search, and that's why I'm not sure when it was published on the website of the Audit Service. But the report got to Parliament February 7th, 2020.
Okay.
Even though if you read the transmitter letter, as you are seeing, it is stated that November, it was sent to the 8th November 2019. But if you do further search, you will see that the auditor, and I have it here, the Auditor General, his letter is dated 5th February 2020. The stamp of receipt from the office of the Speaker is 7th February 2020.
Okay.
So sometimes if you are not careful, you'll be deceived by the official record.
Okay.
You have to do deeper interrogation. But I do not know when it was put on its website. That is what.
But 7th February will still mean that it got to Parliament before we began to discuss it.
Yes, but that's why I said website.
Okay.
I'm talking here of the procedures that have been aligned by law, their own act. As for we, the public, why, if I intercept and I bring it here, won't we discuss it?
Of course.
Yes, we'll discuss it, even if it's 2 months before the Speaker gets it. You can't stop us. You see, and why I'm making this point is this. When such reports go through the procedures that are outlined by law, we are able to do the discussions dispassionately. And wherever there are errors and things to are handled properly without any imputing any ill motive or mischief to anybody. Here we are, before even the Public Accounts Committee will deal with the issues. We are interrogating the issues. I've heard some staff of the Audit Service already on air. I've heard a GETFund person on air, give and take, explaining things. I would have wished that hadn't happened. I would have wished that this focused interaction took place at the Public Accounts Committee. Because see, I've gone through some of the documentation. First of all, and that's why the social media went in all over. See, Appendix 5, the list of 88, the title. I found it very significant. Members of Parliament, politicians, media practitioners, lecturers, heads of institutions and associates awarded scholarships. Members of Parliament, politicians. I've checked the list. I realized that you were talking about 3,100.
Yes.
It was around 9,000.
Applications.
Those accepted were 3,112.
Yes.
6,362 rejected. Now I watched this list of 88, which is titled in this way. I've been counting the politicians and the MPs there. How many are they?
What's your issue?
About 4 or 5 politicians. But out there, when this was put out, it was as if politicians had raided the GETFund table.
Yes.
And look, such issues, I've always said it here, it's like the ex gratia, those things. You put it out in the streets, the masses win. Because you are playing on the keyboards of people's emotions.
Is it the problem of the Auditor General that you are reading and using it the way you want to do?
The titling was his.
And what's wrong with the titling?
The titling, look, my view really is that set up the discussions relative to politicians and MPs.
The law says when they find any infractions or anything, they should draw attention to Parliament. So that's what you have done.
Yeah, but so far, nobody has proved to me that an MP being a beneficiary violates the law. You've been having that argument. I have it. My stand goes with Pempa's stand. Because, see, the distribution formula goes to Parliament. Yeah. Of course, they don't cite individual MPs, but there's a portion for MPs. Yes. And Parliament approves it. So if there has been some illegalization of it, let's look at it from that broad angle. Either a judicial pronouncement or an amendment of the legislative instrument of the act.
That's the Auditor General's interpretation of the law, and it's categorical. This is wrong.
But he's not the finality.
He's not competent to
yes, so he says so. He says so.
But that's fine. But that's why I've moved to the level that either you have a judicial pronouncement, determination, or a legislative amendment. But if you judge it this way, fine. But I'm saying that the listing, the titling itself was significant. I don't think it came out from the blue. And you know, I would have gone along with it if in this 3,000 or so people, you had about 200 or so politicians. I haven't seen the full list. The list he's put here is 88. He finds that list significant. A list of 88 beneficiaries, significant. And he titles them. But I said, when I go through it, I saw just some 4 or 5 politicians or politically affiliated persons. Two or three real politicians and 1 or 2 related to some politicians.
And one of them has even come out to say he didn't benefit.
Yes, but apparently he did some application.
Only he didn't.
And you see, beyond that too, something. Please.
No, but we must state the correction too.
Yeah.
When the MP, Kennedy Osenyako, through his lawyers wrote, they never suggested anywhere in his own interviews, never suggested that he had applied.
You are right.
But now the GETFund administrator has told us that he actually applied.
Yes, which makes it
so it is just the benefit he didn't get, which a number of people have suffered the same thing.
Yes, and I think the MP should have been a bit more open. Deputy Minister should have been a bit more open. I applied, I didn't get. That would have been a fair assessment of the thing. You see, and then, again the difficulty, and I realized Doctor was trying to explain it. I'm not well educated on these things. But you see, when you go through the list of 88, my checks, straight away 12 out because they never even benefited. So that list of 88 is reduced by 12. Now, another point, 39 of the list of 88, if you check the financials, completely out of gear.
What do you mean?
See, let me use a classic. There are many. I've listed over 10. But just because we don't have time, perhaps I will have to take Matthew. I'm taking a popular one so that you can get the point. He yeah, okay. If you check the tuition fee, it's correct. It's $11,200. That is stated in the Auditor General's thing. 11,200. Then when it comes to the living allowance, step point, it is stated here 12,800. But the record showed that it was 1,150. And the 39, the list of 39, each of them, the figure given is in contradiction with the official
Which record
one.
are you talking about?
Which record?
The Auditor General's own work.
The Auditor General's own work.
At one place where you have
the 88
lists. Compared to what list?
Compared to the list.
The full list that was supplied the Auditor General?
No.
Or what?
A list, but you know you are talking to an investigative journalist.
Yeah.
Actual beneficiaries.
Yeah, you are talking to an investigative journalist. I'm sure, and that's why I said I would have wished these things happen at Public Accounts Committee.
Yes.
That's all. So that all the facts are clear. I have a list here, 39 beneficiaries out of this list of 88.
Which list is this?
That's my list.
No.
Stimulate.
You don't work at GETFund.
So it means I've researched GETFund, Audit Service, Ministry of Education, and all that. That's what it means.
And you have received figures that are different from the figures the auditor dealt with.
You are talking to an investigative journalist.
Okay. How are you able to come to the conclusion that the figures given to you are the same figures that the auditor was presented with?
You see, these things are
there
very
were
simple.
two levels that the auditee was supposed to respond, and they responded at those two levels. Why didn't they correct those? And why is that not part of the report?
How are the monies paid?
Bank transfers.
Thank you. So there's enough record at the appropriate places, the banks, all those places, to check. And I say, you are talking to me. I've done my search. Not that I'm perfect. Not that I've never made mistakes before. I have, sometimes very grave ones, which I've come back to retract and apologize for. So I'm human. But I'm saying that I've done these checks. We don't have time. I would have given you more examples. And some, the discrepancy or disparity.
It's too great.
It's too huge.
It's huge, yeah.
And that worries me. And that's what I mean by, well, no audit report is sacrosanct.
Right.
And that's why it's subject to judicial matters. For instance, let me finish this one. The Auditor General intends to issue surcharges and disallowances. Those things must have a foundation, proper foundation. If they are challenged based on such things, you may lose the case in court.
You lose it. You lose it.
You lose the case in court when material, discrepancies of this nature are brought up.
So my question again is, we're going for a quick break. My question again is, why are the people now supplying us alternative facts? Why did they not react in the manner they are reacting now during the two levels of conferences before the audit concluded?
Well, you're asking the wrong person. I'm not a spokesperson for any of them. And that is the reason why I thought Public Accounts Committee would have cured a lot of the mischief and enlightened us.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this is a vibrant democracy. Somebody intercepts the document, he throws it out there, we all discuss.
Okay.
It's social media with all its positive nature, also very negative ones are in there. It's distorted, misrepresented, and everything. But I say, I've said what I've said here in good faith. Look, I'm in full support of the Auditor General and the Audit Service as a matter of principle. But that doesn't mean that when I'm clear in my mind that there's something wrong with a product of his work, he shouldn't be subjected to criticism.
Now let me take my break. And of course, we here at NewsFile, my production reliably informed me they have tried in the course of the week, and they got the administrator of the GETFund. He agreed to speak, to answer questions that I just posed one to Kukubako, and he agreed to speak. But this morning they have called him several times. He's not picking his call. The contact was also made to the Auditor General's office, but they declined to comment any further. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back to ask the questions, including why 40% of the beneficiaries never presented an admission letter. 79% of beneficiaries were funded without showing proof they were Ghanaians. How does GETFund explain this gross neglect? Should our focus be on the errors that purportedly have been made by the Auditor General or the revelations that are uncontested?
Both.
You're welcome back. Very unfortunate, but less than a minute to close. So I suppose that we are unable to do it here. But the report that Kukubako shows us gives us some different figures, lower figures than what the Auditor General has recorded. And we know that the Auditor General also said that they also saw the bank transfers. So what exactly is going on? I think that in due course, maybe Major Online will publish some of these things so that we get to see who is accounting for what. There are a number of people who have come up to say that monies have been taken in their name. They were never giving any money. All right, my guests.
Before you know, there could be some racket somewhere.
There could be some what?
Racket.
Rackets.
Racket
At GETFund. Okay. My guests have been Abdul Malik Kukubaku, editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Joseph Dindiok Penka, MP and Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice. Dr. Eric Odrosai is Chartered Accountant and Governance Expert. He's also a lawyer. I'm Samson Ladia Yanini. Thank you very much. See you again next week, God willing.